A lot of people have been talking about some comments Dr. Umar Johnson made recently on a podcast. In this podcast, he states that he grew up as a Muslim but decided to leave Islam later on in life. During the podcast, he said that his reason for leaving Islam was that it felt like he was practicing quote-unquote Arabism. Today, we're going to listen to the comments that Dr. Umar Johnson made and discuss if they really are true or not. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not here to denounce nor to denigrate Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm not going to talk about the school or any of his fundraising efforts. That's not my goal. I don't want to invalidate or dismiss any of the work that he's done. My only goal is to either confirm or to refute the comments that he made about Islam. So with that caveat out the way, let's begin.
Now, Christianity is the most capitalist-minded of the religions.
Okay.
Islam is not as capitalist-minded, but guess what? It is still anti-revolutionary.
So Umar Johnson says that Islam is anti-revolutionary. To properly address this, we have to ask the question, what does he mean when he says revolutionary? Now let's be brutally honest. We know that he's not talking about a violent revolution or overthrowing the government. He's not talking about anything like that. Now he might mean using civil disobedience as a tool to force government change, but I really don't think he means that either. Now perhaps he means standing up against systemic injustice, specifically the injustice found in the United States that is specific against black people. Now, Islam does encourage that. Islam encourages us to speak out when we see something that is incorrect or something that is wrong. Now, whether Muslims do it or not, that is something else. In any group, you will have those who are more active and those who are not. There are many black Muslims, many non-black Muslims, many American Muslim organizations that are involved in speaking out and standing up against injustice. I believe Dr. Umar Johnson really means black collectivism. When he talks about being revolutionary, I believe he's talking about black people uniting and working together to improve their communities. Again, Islam encourages that. There's nothing wrong with that in Islam. And in fact, Muslims, specifically black Muslims, have exhibited that fact here in the United States. In Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up in the 1980s, Imam Siraj Wahhaj ran out the drug dealers from his community. You can't get much more revolutionary than that. In Atlanta's West End, Imam Jamil Al-Amin and his community cleaned up that area from crime and drugs. All of this really depends on what Dr. Umar means by revolutionary. Bilal Phillips, a black Canadian Muslim scholar, has been banned from entering the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and many other countries. Imam Siraj Wahhaj was banned from entering the UK until very, very recently. Imam Jamil Al-Amin is sitting in prison right now. Meanwhile, Umar Johnson flies all over the world giving talks. Why has Bilal Phillips been banned from going into so many countries? Why has Siraj Wahhaj been banned from going into certain countries? And why do they allow Umar Johnson in? Because they're afraid of one message and they're not afraid of the other. So who's the real revolutionary here?
It is still anti-African culture in many regards.
So Umar Johnson is saying that Islam is anti-African culture. I have no idea where he gets this from. First of all, there's no such thing as African culture. Africa is full of thousands of different ethnic groups. There's no single quote-unquote African culture. There are thousands of different cultures within Africa. This is a Western mentality to lump all Africans into one group. I'm a black American. My ancestors were slaves in the American South. However, I studied Islam in Senegal, West Africa, which is a predominantly Muslim country full of black people. I lived in Senegal, West Africa, studying Islam for 3 years. In fact, I still speak a little bit of Wolof. I can assure you, Senegalese culture, which is the African culture I'm most familiar with, Senegalese culture is alive and well in Senegal. The way Muslims in Senegal dress is way different from the way Muslims in Saudi Arabia dress. Islam does not reject culture. Islam rejects the bad parts of all cultures, whether it's American culture, Indian culture, Arab culture, or any other culture, Islam rejects the bad parts of those cultures. But the good parts of those cultures that do not violate the tenets of Islam are perfectly fine. My teachers in Senegal were not Arab. They were black, African, Muslim men who follow the Maliki madhab. This claim from Umar Johnson is completely false. Now, perhaps the Muslims that he encountered in Philadelphia, maybe some of them were anti-African culture, but that's not Islam, that's the people that he encountered.
I was raised Muslim. Philadelphia has the largest percentage of African-American Sunni Orthodox Muslims in the United States. Dearborn has the most Muslims overall, but they Arab.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with American Africans, non-Nation of Islam, Orthodox Muslim, Philadelphia has more than any city in America.
Speaking of Philadelphia, there are no official statistics to prove that Philadelphia has the largest percentage of black Sunni Muslims, but this is most likely an accurate statement. Philadelphia does have a large population of black Sunni or mainstream Muslims.
I was raised in the very masjid that I believe the Nation of Islam used to own. You understand? Before WD Mohammed took over his father's organization, shut that down, and came with the American Muslim movement. I was raised in one of those mosques.
So this is interesting. Umar Johnson is saying that he grew up in a WD Mohammed masjid. Wallace D. Muhammad, who later changed his name to Warithuddin Muhammad, was the son of Elijah Muhammad, who was the founder of the Nation of Islam. When Elijah Muhammad died in 1975, his son Warithuddin Muhammad, we often just call him WD, he took over the movement and began moving them towards mainstream Islam. I am very familiar with the WD Mohammed community. I grew up in this community. I'm still active in this community today. All of that is to say that I can definitely speak about this community with more authority than Umar Johnson.
But I had to walk away because I saw how we completely ignored black people's problems. We completely ignored black culture.
So now he's saying that Muslims, or at least the Muslims that he knew, ignored black culture. Now we have to give some background here. I think I heard in the past, I think I heard Dr. Umar mention on another podcast that his father was Muslim and his mother was Christian. Like many children who grew up like that, he was most likely exposed to both religions at a young age, Islam and Christianity. I also read somewhere that his parents divorced when he was young. Therefore, he was likely raised by his Christian mother and spent the weekends and holidays and time here and there with his Muslim father. If he did spend time as a child in a WD Mohammed affiliated masjid, there's no way they were not active in their community. Everyone knows that the WD Mohammed community came from the Nation of Islam. Even till today, it still has that legacy of involvement in the black community. Now, the WD Mohammed community may not do the things that Umar Johnson thinks they should do, but they do not ignore black culture.
We completely ignored the black reality. It was all Islam. Learn your Arabic. And I'm like, I'm a practicing Arab. I'm not practicing Islam. I'm practicing Arabism. Why do I got to learn Arab language to worship God? Why do I got to eat like the Arab to worship God? Why do I got to dress like the Arab to worship God? This is not the worship of God. This is the deification of Arabic culture.
Now, this claim of practicing Arabism, I don't know which masjid he attended as a child, but this is an exaggeration. Yes, Islam does require that we make the 5 daily prayers in Arabic and that we recite the Quran in Arabic. That is a requirement in Islam. But that's about it. We have to pray in Arabic and we have to read the Quran in Arabic. But we do not have to mimic Arab culture. That is false. Nor do we have to speak Arabic all the time. Now, some Arabic words do filter into our regular jargon, like you will hear American Muslims say, Insha'Allah, like it's an English word. You'll hear us say, MashaAllah, and Assalamu alaikum, and Bismillah, and Allahu Akbar, and Akhi, and Ukhti, and things like that. And for those people who want to go deep into Islamic studies, they will have to learn Arabic, but that's not most people. As I mentioned, I'm still involved with the WD Mohammed community even till today, and I've delivered many khutbahs, that's a sermon basically, at WD Mohammed affiliated masajid, and they were always in English. Yes, I use Arabic phrases here and there, and I try to translate them when I can, but the khutbah, the sermon, was predominantly in English. Most Muslim men at WD Mohammed affiliated masajid wear regular American clothes, which by the way is what Umar Johnson is wearing in this video. In some ways, black American Muslims sort of have a subculture that fuses some aspects of black culture, some aspects of mainstream American culture, and some aspects of Islamic culture altogether. Now, he also mentioned eating like an Arab. How does one eat like an Arab? I don't understand that. Does he mean eating with the right hand? That's like one of the few stipulations of eating that Islam has. We have to eat with the right hand. Is he talking about eating pork or drinking alcohol? I'm not sure what he means by eating like an Arab. Inshallah, I hope this helps to clarify some of the misunderstandings or misstatements coming from Dr. Umar Johnson. Again, my goal is not to discredit him or anything like that. I don't have anything against the man, but he does have a far reach. And when he makes statements like this, we have to refute them. In my opinion, Dr. Umar Johnson should really just talk about those things that he's familiar with and that he really understands. If he wants to promote Pan-Africanism, that's on him. He's free to do that. But when it comes to Islam, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he should really stay in his lane.